Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, sponsored by ACR Poker, where this weekend we have our TPE free roll. We have the final chance to play in the Venom PKO, which, by the way, spoiler alert, I will be discussing some hands that I played in last week's edition of the Venom PKO, a $5 million guarantee with a buy-in of $2,650 and satellites running round the clock. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am in beautiful, gorgeous, very, very safe New York City, where the crime rate seems to be doubling almost every day. And the big news for me, of course, is that my Twitch stream is up and running. Big shout out to Justin Fat Train Kelly for getting me set up on twitch.tv/Clayton Comic, which is where this weekend you can join us for the TPE free roll. That's right, last week's guest, Derek Killingbird Tenbush, will not be running the TPE free roll this week, so it's on me with my little makeshift laptop Twitch setup to do my best to entertain you guys. I'm hoping to get a few little, bells and whistles just for the TPE family. I will be giving out the password on my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Clayton Comic this Sunday. The free roll starts at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll probably jump on to the stream around 2 or 3 p.m. You can check the Discord. I'll announce it in the Discord right before I go live on twitch.tv/Clayton Comic. I can't wait to try to atone for sins of the past when I literally had my cell phone on and I was showing you my computer screen and all that. So we're a little bit more professional at this point, although nowhere near what you guys might be used to with Derek's stream. It should be a good time, and I hope that you will join me this Sunday for the TPE free roll, very generously made possible by ACR Poker. So much going on for me right now. First off, thank you guys for all the comments about last week's episode with the aforementioned Killingbird. I mean, look, he started this podcast. We owe it all to him. He is the Tournament Poker Edge head honcho, and each and every time he comes onto the podcast, we have a great time chatting and catching up, but also he brings us a good hand. I'm about to review that hand using GTO Wizard to check Derek's lines. If you remember, he had pocket aces with about 35 big blinds in an MTT as played on ACR Poker. So yeah, we'll get to that in a minute and we'll hear what the Wizard has to say about Derek's play. But before we do that, let me just tell you guys, I have so much going on. I appreciate you guys following me on Twitter at Clayton Comic. Same on Instagram. There's a lot happening. My special came out, Middle Child Syndrome, is available on Apple TV and Amazon Prime. You can also get the audio for free on Spotify if you're really cheap and you don't want to pay $3.99 to watch me do comedy. Honestly, I don't blame you. There's got to be a better way for you to spend $3.99. But look, guys, check out the special. Show me some love. I have some dates coming up. This weekend, I'll be at the brokerage in Long Island, or I'm supposed to say on Long Island, as I found out on my live stream the other day, on Long Island in Belmore. So there's a show Friday night at 10 o'clock, and then Saturday at, I think, 7 o'clock. Check govs.com for tickets there. I am headlining along with a cast of supporting characters, if you will, the Long Island comedians. I always have a great time out there. People get a little rowdy. It's a lot of fun. We also have dates coming up at Side Splitters in Tampa, Florida next month. So I hope those of you who are in Florida, if you're anywhere near Tampa, you can come check me out there. And then in March, I'm going to be in Minnesota and other points in the Midwest. So I'll keep you guys posted on my upcoming dates. The special, it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes or Apple Music, it's on YouTube, it's everywhere. So check that out, Middle Child syndrome. All right, let's get into it, guys. You don't want to hear about my stupid comedy career. You want to hear about No Limit Texas Hold'em tournament style poker. And in this hand, Derek, late registration is still going on. They're nowhere near the money. He had about 35 big blinds, which is about an average stack, and he opened with pocket aces from early position. He made it 3x. The solver doesn't really have an option for 3x, like you're really supposed to do like 2.3, something like that off this stack. But of course, we are opening with pocket aces for a raise approximately 100% of the time. And then he gets called by the small blind. And if you remember from last week's episode, he was explaining what a HUD is and how to use it to one of his viewers on twitch.tv/killingbird, his Twitch stream, which is very popular and has a lot more subscribers than mine. Anyway, the solver spit out some results that surprised me. And if you want to be surprised by some results, you guys have to get on board with GTO Wizard. This is by far the easiest tool that I've ever seen to learn GTO. You can practice, you can study, you can analyze your play, you can look at all the different hands you've played, and the solver will help you find holes in your game, spots where you're too aggressive or not aggressive enough. And there's so much to learn. Other solvers I've tried to use have been very challenging for me because I'm not exactly a technical wizard, as anyone who ever watched the early attempts at streaming the TPE free roll with my cell phone can obviously attest. But this is easy even for someone like me to use. You just put in your hand, you look at the ranges, you see what everybody did, you plug in the flop, and it tells you what you should do and what percentage of the time you should do it. So if you want to try GTO Wizard out, you can save 10% off your first purchase by using our affiliate link, which is located in the description of this podcast, which in the early days of podcasting, we used to call the show notes. So yeah, guys, check out the show notes, click the link, and save 10% on your first purchase at GTO Wizard, and you can join in the revolution. So we open with pocket aces from early position, get called by the small blind, and the flop came 5-5 tray with 2 hearts. Derek had the pocket aces with no heart, and the small blind checked, and the solver approves of Derek's decision here on 5-5 tray with 2 hearts, Derek having no hearts at all. Pocket aces, checking back. That surprised me a little bit. I thought this would be a very good flop for a full range C-bet, but what the heck do I know? So checking back is what Derek decided to do here, and that play is approved 37% of the time. The solver also checks, and 35% of the time betting small, and then other options filling in the rest of the decisions. Well, the turn comes the 10 of hearts, which brings the front door flush in, and the small blind checks again. In this spot, Derek chose to bet about half the pot, a little less, as I recall. The solver checks almost every single time, 99.7% with no heart. So I guess the idea is because we don't have a heart, maybe it's more likely that our opponent has a flush, or at least one heart. So I'm not really sure why we would want to give any heart a chance to beat us. But for whatever reason, and this one I have to analyze, maybe you guys can let me know what you think, either in the Discord or on twitter.com/ClaytonComic. Let me know why you think we're supposed to pretty much always check it back when we have pocket aces with no heart, when there are 3 hearts on the board. Anyway, Derek did bet, and he got check raised. Now here's where things get weird, guys, because Derek did a thing that the solver won't do, betting on this board with no heart. So we got check raised, and so it's hard to know what to do. Let's just say that all the times that the solver bets, it has the ace of hearts when it bets pocket aces, and so then, therefore, obviously, it always calls the check raise. I don't know what the solver would say to do if we don't have a heart, because the solver prefers not betting without one. So I was very shocked to see that, but not shocked that we're going to call the raise when we have a heart, obviously. Anyway, the river came the deuce of diamonds, a total and utter brick unless we're up against 6-4, I guess, or maybe ace-4, but very strange for either of those hands to ever check raise on the turn. Anyway, the small blind shoves, and Derek only has about 75% of the pot left and can't fold his aces. He calls, and if you remember from last week, he ended up beating King 6 offsuit, which was a hand that just decided to go absolutely crazy. No heart, no nothing. Very, very strange play by Derek's opponent, who, if you recall, he did have down as a tight player over something like 150 hands. So you can't really trust your reads too much online. People do weird things, especially at lower stakes. So the solver does approve of calling with pocket aces here. With this big shove for all our chips, we're going to snap it off. You didn't get this far with your aces to fold them. So I guess I'll give Derek a B- on this hand. He did some weird things like the 3x open, and then obviously not following the lines that the wizard wants to take. But on a bigger note, he did have his reasons, right? He thought this was a really tight, really nitty player, and the reasons why Derek played in the way he did make sense to me from an exploitative standpoint. The solvers can teach us how to beat perfect strategy, how to beat a robot that knows every single thing and does everything at a perfect frequency. Your real life opponents will have very little in common with these AI robots who are beating us all at poker right now, unless you're up against somebody like Isaac Haxton or David Peters. Typically, the best thing about the solver is it tells you what you should deviate from. So if you know what a GTO approach would look like, then you know what you're exploiting and how. So that's what I use it for, because typically I don't play against the top players in the whole world. Although in the Venom PKO, you never know who you might see online. But studying spots using GTO Wizard is improving my game immensely, for sure. I will be scary by the time we get to Vegas for the World Series of Poker this summer. By the way, where the hell's the schedule? All right, let's move on, guys. I want to talk about a few hands I played last Sunday in the Venom PKO. Again, it's a $5 million guarantee, progressive knockout bounty format. The bounties start at $625 and they go up well into the 5 figures from there. So it's a very exciting tournament, especially if you can accumulate some chips early, collect a few bounties maybe. It's a good time. All right, so here we go. The blinds were 4,000, 8,000 with a 900 ante, and we had 750K in our stack, so almost 100 big blinds. The average stack at this point was right around 750K as well. This is a deep stack, high stakes online tournament, guys. So your average stack in your local card room daily tournament is probably around 30 big blinds, and this one is closer to 100, so that makes it a lot of fun. And you just have a lot more maneuverability. You don't just have to go all in every time you see 2 picture cards and push and pray, hope for the best kind of thing. I don't really enjoy those types of tournaments that much. And forgive me if I've mentioned this before, but I love the Venom. Anyway, the action folds to me on the button, and I've got the ace of clubs, 9 of hearts. The small blind is a tight player with about 500K, and the wildest, loosest player at my table that keeps 3-betting and 4-betting and doing all kinds of crazy check raising and stuff like that. He's got about 500K, which, by the way, is up from his 300K starting stack, but below average at this point in the tournament, although clearly he's not too desperate with about 63 big blinds. Due to the spelling in this player's username, which I don't want to give out here, I suspect he may come from Eastern Europe, and his playing style also reflects that opinion. Anyway, he decides to call, and so now I get to see a flop in position versus this player, Hero, holding the ace of clubs, 9 of hearts. And the flop comes the queen of hearts, jack of diamonds, 5 of diamonds. So queen, jack, 5, 2 diamonds. I have ace 9 with no diamonds, and my opponent checks. I could c-bet here. I mean, generally speaking, a flop with 2 broadways in it is substantially better for the late position raiser than it would be for the big blind defender. I mean, he should have a lot of garbage that missed this flop completely in his range. The problem for me is I don't want to get check raised because there's a decent chance ace high is good even when I am check raised. And I also don't think that I want to play a huge pot with it. So to me, it felt like check for pot control, maybe induce a bluff on the turn that we can call, and in all likelihood, call again on the river if we're still sitting there with ace-9 unimproved. I mean, that's how wild this player is. I would estimate his PFA rating, for those who are familiar with HUDs and things like that. I would say it's probably between 3 and 4. So your PFA is your post-flop aggression factor, which tells us how often you bet or raise rather than check or call. So it's a ratio. I would say he's in that 3 to 4 range, and normal is probably right around 2. So yeah, I mean, I think against a player like that, you've got to be able to call him down a lot with marginal hands, even ace high in a spot like this one. So I don't want to open up that can of worms. I'm just going to check. And if he bets the turn, I'll probably have to call no matter what. Anyway, that's the plan. I check behind, and now there's still 45,000 in the middle. When the turn comes, the jack of clubs pairing the board. So our board is now queen of hearts, jack of diamonds, 5 of diamonds, jack of clubs, and we have ace-9 with no connection to anything. And our opponent checks again. Well, I was streaming. I streamed this entire tournament, which I think you can still find on my Twitch page, twitch.tv/Clayton Comic. And I remember saying when this card hit that I really didn't see any reason to bet it. Like, if I'm good on the flop, I'm still good on the turn. And if for some reason I wasn't good on the flop, there's like no chance I can get this guy to fold. He's not going to fold a 5. He's not going to fold any pair. I think he would call me down with deuces, probably even ace-10. Literally no hand that I could get to fold. So I can't get a better hand to fold. I can't really get a worse hand to call, right? If he can't beat ace-9, he's either going to check raise or check fold. So betting really does nothing. I suppose it protects me against a draw or really any hand that could hit a pair and beat me. But look, against this guy, I think it's best to just check it back again and see if we can get him to try to bluff us on the river. I'll probably have to call any reasonable bet on the end. So I did that. I checked again, and now the river pairs the board again with the 5 of spades. So our final board is queen, jack, 5, and opponent overbets more than twice the pot, 96,000, guys, into 45,000. I mean, I don't know. What the heck are we supposed to do with that? I mean, look, you need to be right so often in these overbet situations. I mean, he is now putting in 96,000, bringing the pot to 140,000, by the way. Now it's all of a sudden, we were playing a small pot, and now we're playing an inflated pot with ace high. And I don't really know what to do. I mean, in order for calling to be profitable, my hand needs to be good like 65% of the time. So this is brutal. I mean, I don't know. Is ace high good that often? Like 2/3 of the time? Is he really going to be bluffing that often? At the same time, I didn't really see any hand that he should be playing this way. And I felt like he might be trying to blow me off a chop, like he might have ace high himself. Remember, my 9 doesn't play at this point because the board is double paired. So I'm really just playing a bare ace. I don't know, guys. I wasn't sure what to do, but I decided to make the call. And my opponent turned over the king of spades, 6 of hearts for no pair, just king high. I thought this was very strange by him. No reason for him to turn king high into a bluff. I mean, his king high could very well be good against my button opening and then checking it all the way down range. The only thing I like about this bet is that it makes me fold my king high range, right? I can't really call with king high hoping to chop or something. I don't know. I don't understand this bet. But when you play high stakes, you're going to see some things that you won't understand, either because the players are better than you or because they're rich people who don't know about money and don't care about poker. All right, I think I said that backwards. Don't know about poker and don't care about money. But yeah, you end up seeing things that you won't understand. And this is a great example of that. I didn't know what to do, but I closed my eyes and pressed the call button. And sure enough, it worked out for me. But guys, a lot of this had to do with my read on this opponent. I had been studying his play, and I had noticed that he was very, very loose and very, very aggressive. Not the kind of guy that can check 3 times in a row no matter what's going on. Even on a double paired board where he really can't get a better hand to fold, he has to try to bluff. And he figures, if I'm going to bluff, I might as well totally polarize myself. Maybe he's trying to represent a 5. Whatever, dude. You're going to have to show me that 5 because I've been watching you for hours now. So let's do one more. A little while later, still the same level though, 4K, 8K, right about an hour away from the close of late registration. There are about 150 players remaining of the 400 and something that started my starting flight, which was day 1B of the Venom PKO on ACR Poker. So just a little while after the other hand, a very loose, aggressive player opens. Not the same player, by the way, from the last hand, but we're still at that same table. This is another player that I've been watching and observing a lot at my table. And he opens for the minimum to 16,000 from third position. And the cutoff, who is mostly tight, but I'm not that sure about him because he hasn't been at my table for very long and I didn't recognize him from any other tournaments, also calls. Now, I'm on the button. I've got a 6 of spades, 5 of clubs. These guys both have about 750,000 in their stacks. And after the last hand, my stack is now up over 800, around 860,000. So, I mean, obviously you can fold 6-5 offsuit. I like to play a lot of hands on the button. I could 3-bet this and maybe try to take it down or at least build a pot in position. I also think I can call here. I mean, this is a spot to overcall. I mean, think about it, guys. When you're in the cutoff and you cold call an open, you don't really want the player on your immediate left who has the button to call. So one way to kind of approach poker is to think, what does my opponent want me to do? And then do the opposite. I mean, you can't take this too far, but I can tell you, I've mentioned this tournament that I played at the Venetian several years ago now, where I was seated between Cliff Josephy and Joseph Chong. And Chong was making my life a living hell. I mean, he was playing probably 60% of the hands in position. And whether he was in the button or the cutoff or the hijack. Now, we know Joseph's playing style. He plays a lot more hands than you or I do, or at least he did back then. He may have joined the GTO revolution and might be playing a little closer to a robot now. But at least back then, this was probably 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. He made everything hard for me because anytime I called, I have to deal with him on my left, and that's not fun. So I wanted to kind of be that guy at this table. I had a good stack, well above average at this point. I felt like I had a tough table image, and I decided to see the flop on the button, hoping, of course, that the blinds don't squeeze. So yeah, I made the call with 6-5 offsuit and just about 100 big blinds effective. The blinds are the same blinds from the previous hand, so that big blind, we're a little bit worried that he's an Eastern European player who can't possibly just call for 8,000 more and see a flop 4 ways. The small blind did fold and the big blind timed out. So I don't know what else he was doing that was more important than the Venom PKO, but his entire time bank disappeared, and now the 3 of us are going to see a flop. I'm in position with 6-5 offsuit, and I have 2 opponents, and the flop is a perfect 7-4 tray with 2 diamonds. So I flop the nuts, and I'm loving it. I don't have any diamonds, but I also don't care. I've got a 7 high straight, and both of my opponents check to me. I decided to be optimistic. I mean, I don't like that the original Razor didn't c-bet this 7 high board. I feel like he's going to have Jack 10 or something a lot. And, the other guy could have bet and chose not to. But let's go ahead and put some chips in and see if we can build a pot now with the nuts. I bet big. I bet 56,000 into the 70,000-ish pot. And the original Razor folded. And the player on my right calls. So we're going to see a turn card in position, hero with 6-5 on 7-4 tray, and with 182,000 now in the middle, the turn comes the 4 of clubs, pairing the board. Doesn't it always pair the board, guys? Like every time when you flop the nuts, you don't have the nuts anymore on the turn. Doesn't it feel like it happens every time? It doesn't really happen every time. It could have easily been a queen of clubs. Anyway, he checks again, and I don't like that the board has paired, but I'm absolutely not going to stop betting here. I have to try to get value for my hand. I also have this player covered, so if I can manage to get all his chips in the middle, I can win his bounty. So we've got to start thinking in those terms whenever you've got a big hand in a bounty tournament. So I decided to bet 120 into the 182,000 pot, and again, villain just calls. So at this point, I have to start thinking, he's called 2 pretty significant bets. Does he have me beat? Does he have 4 4s or a full house like pocket 3s, pocket 7s? All very possible. I don't think he could have 4-3, but maybe. I called with 6-5. He could also have a straight himself. Unlikely since I blocked so many combos of suited 6-5, but still possible. He could have a 4 in his hand. He could have a slow played over pair like pocket aces. But this is what you want to start doing, especially when another substantial, significant bet gets called again. You've got to start thinking, guys, like, what is he calling me with? You've got to wonder. So now the river comes the 8 of hearts. So the flush missed, right? The flop came with 2 diamonds, and now on the river there are still just 2 diamonds. So that's one piece of good news. My opponent could have had a flush draw this whole time, and maybe he'll bluff at it now, right? That's what I started thinking. So he checked, and I have a decision. Do I want to try to bet again? And if so, how much? I think we have to bet, right? We still have a straight, which is a very strong hand. We can get called by worse. We can get called by a hand like ace 4, right? 3 of a kind. Maybe if we bet right, we can even get called by an overpair like a slow played pocket aces, or perhaps maybe pocket 9s that didn't want to 3-bet pre-flop. These hands are all possible. And so those are my value targets when into the pot of 420,000, I bet 145K. My opponent at this point only has 580 behind, so that affected my bet sizing. I'm no longer going for the bounty, right? I'm not going to overbet just trying to collect his $625 bounty. Instead, I'm just going for value, trying to build my stack, and to my shock and awe, my opponent check raised all in. Now there's over $1 million in the middle. It cost me about another 400K to call. This is really tough. This is a brutal spot. I remember saying right before I made this bet, I said, well, I guess if I get check raised here, I'm going to have a tough decision. So the question becomes, would he have slow played quad 4s or a full house all the way? Like even on the flop, if he had flopped, say, bottom set, and I came out betting, doesn't he want to check raise in case I have a flush draw or any other kind of hand that might be able to beat him? Like 7-6 has like a lot of outs to get a straight, things like that. Like you have to wonder like how they would play their entire range. And so bottom set on 7-4 tray with 2 diamonds, I think most players would have check raised me, right? You don't want to see another diamond come off. You want to try to build a pot, maybe try to get the double up. You want to try to get as many chips as you possibly can. He's got the 4th nuts on that flop, and he can't really put me on having pocket 4s, pocket 7s, or 6-5. Now, I do have 6-5, but he doesn't know that, and he can't possibly know that. And then when the turn gives him a full house, does he really have the power to check? A lot of guys would check call lead, right? You still don't want to see another check back from me, and then that's going to keep the pot too small when you've got such a monster hand. I just don't know what hand can check raise me on the river that I can beat, right? He's either bluffing, like with a missed flush draw, maybe a hand like Queen Jack of Diamonds, or he's got us beat. I don't think he would check raise all in with ace-4 anymore. I just don't feel like that's a big part of his range. He has to be worried that that hand is behind now that I have bet on the flop, turn, and river. So I guess I'm supposed to fold. I don't really know what the heck I'm supposed to do on this river, but I was unable to fold. I made the call, and sure enough, my opponent turned over pocket trays. So I could have just checked behind on the end and lost a medium-sized pot, but instead I went for value on the end and wasn't able to fold my straight. Let me know what you guys think about this one. I lost a lot of chips on that hand. I did continue to last maybe another hour or two in the tournament, even though I was pretty short after losing that pot. A couple of good things happened after that. You can watch the entire thing if you are so inclined by visiting twitch.tv/Clayton Comic. And that'll do it for this episode. Appreciate all the subscribing you guys are doing, all the ratings you're giving us on Apple Podcasts and wherever else you can rate and review podcasts. It means a lot. We read each and every one, and we feel the love. And so for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, and with special thanks, as always, to our very generous sponsor, ACR Poker, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thanks so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Lock in intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine,